5,000-year cycle, and it has to do with the sun giving off a huge flash of electrical and bright, fiery energy. So the geologist Robert Schoch has done some really cool work in his book Forgotten Civilization on this idea of the solar flash being what ended Atlantis. And there's a lot of really cool information about this, including this 5-inch thick layer of ash throughout most of the northern hemisphere that is all the result of this solar eruption. The solar flash apparently caused the Earth to shift on its axis, and where these people had settled, which they had called Antarctica, they called Atlantis, became Antarctica. Anyway, so that's like one group, people with elongated skulls. We've talked about this quite a bit in my other videos. The descendants of people from Atlantis that spread out, and there were two, this is another really important new piece of information, two lines, okay? They had slightly different physiologies as well, because apparently one group may have originated on the exploded planet that has been called Tiamat or Maldek. The other group may have been originated on Mars. So anyway, there were two, this is some of the newest briefings that we've gotten. There were two surviving groups from this ancient civilization in our solar system. There were people, they both had elongated skulls, but one of them had more of a ski slope on the head, and the other one had more of a bony knot here. And you can see examples of both types of skulls, and especially in Mesoamerica, we see lots of these skulls that have been found, which is a very, very interesting study. And then in Egypt, of course, we see this same thing happening with the pharaohs, with Akhenaten, Nefertiti, their daughter Meritaten. There's several really great stone carved heads of her in places like the Berlin Museum, where you get like undeniable, she has no hair, the skull is almost twice as long as ours, and it's just fascinating. So what we're now finding out is we don't really know if one of them was on the exploded planet, one of them was on Mars, but there were two family lines, and they were warring with each other. They might have even caused this war that blew up their planet, but warring between each other. They actually both survived. Both groups crash landed on Earth, and they eventually agreed to divide the Earth, and so one line went up through Africa, Europe, and kind of like the western part of Asia, let's say. The other group went up through the Americas and apparently to some degree pushed into Eastern Asia as well. And again, they have different skulls, and they ran the planet, and they probably had some wars. They lost contact with each other after the fall of Atlantis 12,500 years ago, the most recent solar flash, according to Robert Schoch. And in the aftermath of that catastrophe, they did not come back into contact until actually Columbus. Part of apparently why the Queen financed Columbus was to reunite these factions, because you have the people with the elongated skulls still living in the Vatican, imported from Egypt. And they used those mitre hats to conceal their identity. Most of them do not live above ground, though. They live in various secure facilities underground or otherwise outside of prying public eyes. We really know a lot less about the surviving priesthoods in Mesoamerica, where they went. They also had the elongated skulls. But we do know that they came back into contact with each other, starting with Columbus and those other marine expeditions. And eventually, this becomes the root of the Rothschild versus Rockefeller War. In other words, the Rothschilds were sort of the public face of the European faction of the people with the elongated skulls, and the Rockefellers had made treaties with the American factions of people with elongated skulls. So then you have a third party. You have this other group that also came here apart from these two warring factions, and that's the Dragon family. They arrived far more recently. They had really cool technology, and they figured out the best place to come and land to be able to get the gold. So one of the things we've heard for so long is that the Dragon family has 14.5 Olympic swimming pools worth of gold at least, whereas the official gold on the books is only one Olympic-sized swimming pool. So that gets pretty amazing to think about, like, wow, where is all this gold and how much wealth is that? It's staggering. And this gets into things like the collateral accounts, money that has been hidden away in various underground bases and so forth. My poor wife is getting eaten alive over there. We are really fighting hard to get you this information in this nice spot. So anyway, the Dragon family also has obviously their own underground facilities where they're manufacturing craft, UFOs. They're doing really cool stuff with that. And so when you start talking about the Dragon family, you're talking about the dynastic Asian bloodlines that have a lot more money than anybody else, including the Cabal, really. They're much more wealthy than the Cabal. And there's been this war between the Dragon family and the Cabal. It's gone on for quite some time. It never really has resolved. It's still ongoing. So anyway, the real battle to resolve our planet is going to come down to an agreement that has to be made. They want prosperity for everybody. They want to clean up the planet. They want to get us into space. All these amazing things. That's the Dragon family's goal, okay? And they are working very hard on that goal, including circumventing all of the classified programs to bring us a hover car. That you will have a hover car in your garage, and that at its maximum speed, you're looking at being able to go anywhere in America in 90 seconds and anywhere in the world in 7 to 9 minutes. That's how fast these things go. So that is being worked on right now. I know this for an absolute fact, that this is all being put together in the works.
Anywhere in the world in 9 minutes. Wow. Unreal.
What happened was I was having dinner at a restaurant here in Boise where I had been having some meetings with people that are in the business of building flying saucers.
Okay.
For all intents and purposes. They're aircraft. But 22 years ago, they built 3,500 of them. 2,500 of them were sent to Mars, and 1,500 of them were put on the backside of the moon. And they are spacecraft. They travel at Mach 17.
Yeah, we've talked about this. Okay. I know who these people are. Yeah.
Right. And you know the fellow that did that.
Yep. We're good friends thanks to you, so.
Yes. Well, here's what happened. When I was having this meal with a group of people that I had been working with on there's a new flying saucer, not flying, well, we don't call it a flying saucer, it's a new craft.
Right.
It's not a normal craft.
Right.
And it flies at about Mach 44. And it's coming out to replace one that was 23 years old now. And it was so far advanced, there wasn't anything necessary. Now,
so Mach 44 means 44,000 miles an hour? What does it actually mean?
Well, Mach 44 is 560 miles an hour times 44.
Oh, okay.
The one we did before, I flew once from a air base. I think it may be Davis-Monthan Air Base. I'm not sure if that's the right one or not, but anyway, it's down in the basin between San Francisco and Sacramento. And it's in a hole in the ground that's about 1.5 miles in diameter. And it's built down under the ground, and they take off out of there. They have a cloaking device that's good enough that you can't see them with your naked eye from, say, 1,000 feet.
Right.
And you don't have the number of rods and cones required to see them at that distance. And anyway, they take off from there. That's one of their bases that they take off from. It's right in the middle of, bean fields, basically.
Right.
It's at the end of the San Francisco Bay that comes in and goes all the way down to, down south of, it goes down to east of San Jose, almost, if not all the way east of San Jose. It comes under the big bridge there in San Francisco. San Francisco Bay Bridge. And then on the west side of it is Stanford University and all those little towns run down through there, Cupertino and et cetera, et cetera. And then on the other side of the bay is Hayward and Walnut Grove and Berkeley and so forth on the other side of the bay. And it's on the Berkeley side. It's between Berkeley and Sacramento. Out in an area that's, a lot of it is marshy fields and the rest of it is up out of the water. Up out of the low water table. And but it's a hole in the ground that they just went around and around and around and shoved dirt out of it for years. And then built.
Why would they need to have this ship? Why would they need to have this ship so far down in a hole?
So people couldn't see it.
Right. Okay. And are you saying that there were bases that these ships were going to on Mars and the Moon?
Well, they went from there. They also flew from here. Some of them went to Wright-Patterson. Some of them went to the air base there in the military base there in the Bay in Washington, D.C. A lot of them were runners that went up and up. Most of them, when they take off, they fly straight in the air. They go straight up.
Okay.
And so anyway, there were a lot of them went up and provided communication links. And
so why would you need to send ships to Mars or to the Moon? What was the purpose of sending them out there?
purpose of it was to fight the Dracos.
Really?
They're from a different galaxy than we are. They're not from the galaxy that we're members of the Milky Way. And the people in that galaxy have a group, and most of them are people that have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, a nose, a couple of holes to breathe through. Some of them are very different than we are, but they have the same features,
Right.
just different. Like most fish have the same things, most snakes have the same thing, most rodents, most spiders, spiders have 8 legs instead of 6, and or 4, but they're still, they have 2 eyes and 1 mouth and 1 rectum, and so they're all pretty much the same, different sizes by far.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, as you get further out, obviously you get older than the people here in this galaxy, which is a fairly new galaxy.
Okay.
And so it's in the early stages of evolution compared to some of the others, and some of them are, the people are mechanical They're biomechanical rather than just biological, which is an area that MIT especially has a group that have been working on building people that are biomechanical. They have computers for brains, which we don't talk about at all.
Right.
And the Dracos are basically, Draco meaning dragon. They're basically, you would say they're of a dragon family rather than a human family. Some have 6 legs, some have 4, or some have 2 legs and 2 arms. But most of them have 4 arms and 2 legs, or 4 legs and 2 arms.
That would basically either create mass hysteria, or everybody that has a weak immune system dies, something really horrible like that. Because if Uncle Jeffy gets arrested and you look at his dossier of who got invited to his island, it is a who's who list of all the top people in the deep state. So this is not a joke. When Jeffy gets arrested, that's the moment that the deep state is willing to throw everything in the trash, ruin the planet. Apparently they also tried to create a doomsday nuclear weapon launch from a Russian sub. The Russians in the sub disabled the weapon before it could be launched, and in so doing they all lost their lives. But it did not go into fusion, thank goodness. And we applaud and praise them for their heroic sacrifice. A lot of people are dying right now. This is the peak of the war. It's a World War III, a shadow World War III. So again, if there are chemtrail planes there, and if they did have a doomsday aerosol, this strike would stop it. Not to mention, we don't know what other kind of trafficking was going on from there. There's all kinds of reports from the original Fritz Springmeier books about the Illuminati, of extensive trafficking of humans underneath China Lake in the underground parts. I mean, it's anybody's guess all the crazy stuff that was going on there.
Look at these names here. These people are part of the human trafficking. Remember, Trump just passed the second part of this. This is part of the D-class and the other things that are going on. This is sick stuff.
The war, it's a World War III, a shadow World War III. So again, if there are chemtrail planes there, and if they did have a doomsday aerosol, this strike would stop it. Not to mention, we don't know what other kind of trafficking was going on from there. There's all kinds of reports from the original Fritz Springmeier books about the Illuminati, of extensive trafficking.
Look at there, the Astor bloodline, Bundy bloodline, Collins bloodline, DuPont bloodline, Freeman bloodline, Kennedy bloodline. This Asian bloodline here, like the Onassis bloodline, the Rockefeller bloodline, the Rothschild bloodline, the Russell bloodline, and the Van Dune bloodline. And Rovian? Wow.
Of humans underneath China Lake in the underground parts. I mean, it's anybody's guess all the crazy stuff that was going on there, but we do know that apparently Edwards, China Lake, and Nellis were the 3 main paperclip areas for the Germans that got transported here after World War II and really never lost their loyalty to their original party. So anyway, I'm hearing some storms and clouds, but we're going to keep going here. We're going to keep doing this for you because there's a lot of things I want to cover, and it's crazy and it's exciting, but it's scary, and then there's loss and there's pain and there's tears, and it's all kind of blending together right now. So I cannot believe that it's an accident that we see these 2 earthquakes that perfectly destroy China Lake, but like hardly anything else gets damaged. No civilian casualties. Maybe there's one guy they found under a pickup truck. They don't even know if it's from the earthquake or not. Even the town of Ridgecrest nearby doesn't seem to have been destroyed. But if you actually look at the news for the military for China Lake, they tell all non-essential personnel to leave, don't come back, go down to other bases, because everything mission capable has been destroyed. So there's nothing left there. The earthquakes just wiped it out. These were bigger earthquakes, the second one in particular, bigger than Northridge 1994. And you look at the pictures of what Northridge did to LA, and it was tremendous devastation. So, and you notice they're not talking about China Lake at all. There's no pictures from there. There's no pictures of damage. Nobody's talking about this. Then they get Jeffy the next day. Now tell me that's an accident. And then the next day after that, there's this flooding that takes place in Washington, D.C. And it's so bad that you can't ride the subway. It's so bad that the basement of the White House is flooding. I do not think this was the alliance. I do not think this was the president's own people. I've had insiders tell me that the underground tunnels around D.C. are 3 times bigger than D.C. itself. And so it's possible, as my wife actually got this idea, that they could have floodgates in the Potomac River, that they can just open them up and flood out these underground tunnels as a doomsday step, coordinating it with some kind of rainfall attack, okay, so that what you get is all of this evidence washed away. So then that doesn't stop anything, and the very next day we lose Ross Perot. Now this is also really sad because Corey Good and I were contacted by a family member of Ross Perot's. I'm not going to say who. He was going to come to Contact in the Desert, actually, and we were in some negotiation about that at one point, and he was just going to be visiting, but obviously it would be a big deal and people would know who he was. We have strong reason to believe that Ross Perot had a lot to do with the bankrolling of earlier parts of the Alliance's effort in the 1990s and onward. That a lot of his money was going in, and that without him the Alliance effort could never have happened, okay? And we also had an offer for him to finance Above Majestic, and after he made that offer, he suddenly got sick, and he was no longer mentally capable of carrying through with the offer. So I find it very suspect that you have the China Lake earthquakes that destroy nothing else but these bases. You have Uncle Jeffy gets arrested the next day. It's all starting to unravel now. Who did he invite? What are the pictures they found in his Manhattan apartment when they smashed the doors open? What other kinds of documents did they find? What did they get out of his safe? What are they going to find on the island? What kind of crazy blackmail stuff did he have on people? How many sealed indictments are there? They unsealed an indictment, folks. They unsealed an indictment about Uncle Jeffy. A sealed federal indictment. This is happening. This is true. This is real, okay? So think about what the implications are here. Think about how we are being shown the fulfillment of everything we've been telling you was going to happen. You got people messing around with kids. You got this horrible stuff going on. There's linkages to all these other things, and it's all going to unfold very rapidly because, as I told you guys, apparently there's a hard deadline of September, mid-September, for all of these things, all these different things to be declassified. And then, as I told you, Pete had told me maybe a couple months ago that if we made it 6 more months without some major problem, that he would be able to talk about anything that he had ever seen. No restrictions. So we have Ross Perot, who had offered to help us, and then...
So the total declass didn't come out in September. We're past that. Something has put that back and pushed that back. But it is, I believe, going to come out this year. Just a matter of timing and when.
You know, he'd also helped the Alliance to a great degree, and he's lost. And then the financial agreement goes through, I think the July 9th was like a Wednesday or something like that. I forget exactly what day of the week it was, but it was July 9th. And then Ward signs off on the new agreement for the new financial system that will free the planet. A day and a half later, they find him dead, face down, in his apartment, and Pete Peterson dies the same day. And so all 3 of these guys, Ross Perot, Ward, and Pete Peterson, are heroes. They deserve our respect. And it's very sad for me to have lost Pete. I considered him like a father. My father fought in Vietnam, had a very negative view of the military, as did a lot of people with the Woodstock and the hippie movement. And Pete talked about being around soldiers as if it was like being around angels. He really loved the military, and I saw them in a different way by talking to Pete. I saw them as actually our noble and honorable protectors, that the good guys in the military did not want to support this nefarious Satanism, this crazy stuff that was going on that they were very aware of. Remember that even before 9/11 took place, there were films going on inside all these places like Bohemian Grove and the Oval Office. They have all this damning video footage, all this documented evidence, and that evidence is going to come out. So we are right on the threshold of getting the freedom that we deserve and the freedom that we've worked so hard to achieve. I honor Pete Peterson as our fallen hero. I honor Ward. I honor Ross Perot and the work that he apparently did in making this alliance happen and making it possible. It has been a very low-funded operation for a long time. The current president was not a politician. He was brought in because it was either that or they were going to do a military coup against the president of the time. And this was all decided about 3.5 years ago now.
So they're getting close to do a military coup against Obama. They brought in Trump instead.
To approach him and to say, can you self-finance your own campaign? You already have a public figure presence. People know who you are. We're gonna tell you, what's really going on. He was given a 2-week briefing. He was shown all kinds of horrible stuff, and he agreed to do it. So I don't usually get too excited about presidents. I mean, I was really hoping that Obama could do some good for the country, and a lot of people got angry at me about that. And now I'm talking about the current president, and I'm saying, you know what? Maybe there's more to this than just the negative view that the media gives us. Maybe there's something else. Oh, people get so upset.
Can you talk about how Pete wasn't sick?
Yeah. So I can talk about that. So I talked to Pete like 2 weeks ago.
So Pete, I just want to confirm that today is June 6th, 2019. This is a conversation that we're having. You are not being threatened or coerced in any way. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
What's something you can do to tell us?
We're going to
that
move
you-
this on. I don't know that he's got any bombshells at the end of this.
And if you go back to the infamous, as I've made it infamous now, quote 2700 from these Q posts.
Let's see, it can never be allowed to happen again in our country or to another president. Defer or prevent this from happening again. Anyhow, while some want to quietly remove those responsible and go about our business, save face in the world stage, these in control understand that band-aid will simply not work. No one should be above the law, no matter how massive the spider web is entangled. This will never happen again. Truth works, facts matter.
And we can't tell you where he went. One of Pete's friends, who's the guy that called me and told me that he had died, actually was able to talk to somebody at the center and get them to admit to where Pete went. But all the attacks started after Pete was missing, presumed dead. So I'm very, very grateful that we've tracked him down. He was at Cascadia. He was in the Alpine Wing. I talked to him on the phone in his room, recorded it, and got him to say that I did not steal his money, talking about, him coming forward, these new disclosures he wanted to do, and in 6 months he could say anything he wanted. Nonprofit, it's free. We also have a for-profit project, which is The Cosmic Secret. Now this film, I'm really, really proud of it. I starred in it extensively. We have a bunch of other insiders in there as well. Dr. Michael Salla, we have Jordan Sather, just a really great team. Corey Good is in the movie as well. And what you're going to see in this movie is a lot of great production value, a lot of great B-roll, very relaxing, meditative soundtrack, and a storyline about the cosmic history of our solar system and ascension. There's never been a movie like this made before about ascension. We went to #1 21 minutes after it was released. But as of today, we found out that Facebook has banned us from advertising this film for life. The only reason that they gave was just violation of their policies, but it doesn't even make any sense because we're not doing anything that hasn't already been talked about in various other forms before?
Cosmic Secret Band available now. All right, there you are. We're going to end it here. This is about an hour and a half long. So much going on. Worth looking at and digging deeper into. Hopefully this we're going to get into D class this year, and we're going to get into other stuff about secret space programs that are going on both in the Navy and the Air Force. And the Navy is far above the Air Force as far as we know. So I don't even know if they're going to get into what the Navy's doing. It's Roger Mark, Montana. Good day.